This podcast may contain explicit language. 'Cause she's got a great ass, and you've got your head all the way up it. Heat is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
Ooh. Frog in your throat there, Dad?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's what happens when you have bronchitis.
Yeah, your yearly, annual case of bronchitis.
I'm an asthmatic.
Okay.
My lungs are not the best.
Fair enough. Well, it's time. We are here to discuss Heat. For our 291st episode, we discuss the crime thriller Heat from 1995, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Written and directed by Michael Mann, cinematography by Dante Spinati, music by Elliot Goldenthal, editing by Dov Honig, Pasquale Buba, William Goldenberg, and Tom Rolfe, starring Al Pacino as LAPD Lieutenant Vincent Hanna, Robert De Niro as Neil McCauley, Val Kilmer as Chris Shahirless, John Voight as Nate, Tom Sizemore as Michael Chirito, Diane Venora as Justine Hanna, Amy Brenneman as Edie, Ashley Judd as Charlene Shahirless, McKelty, I think it's McKelty. It might be Michael T. or
Michael T.
Michael T. Is it? Okay. Michael T. Williamson as Sergeant Bobby Drucker, Wes Studi as Detective Sammy Casals, Ted Levine as Detective Mike Bosco, Dennis Haysbert as Don Breeden, William Fichtner as Roger Van Zant, Natalie Portman as Lauren Gustafson, Kevin Gage as Waingro, Hank Azaria as Alan Marciano, and Danny Trejo as Gilbert Trejo. Background for the movie: Heat premiered on December 15th, 1995. This is the 30th anniversary. On a rough budget of $60 million, Heat would gross over $67 million in its initial run to finish number 27 at the worldwide box office for 1995. It was critically acclaimed at the time, but it was not nominated for any Oscars. In the years since, it has been reevaluated as an all-time classic, with Rolling Stone ranking it number 28 on its list of the 100 greatest movies of the 90s. The Guardian ranking it number 22 on its list of the greatest crime films of all time. It was ranked number 31, or revealed, on the Cinema Legacy poll a few weeks ago. Heat has also been influential on other major directors since its release, with Christopher Nolan specifically highlighting the film as a direct influence on The Dark Knight, which I believe currently sits at number 3 on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast's full list. Heat 2, the novel, was released in 2022, and Michael Mann is set to return to the director's chair to film the prequel movie. Adam Driver, Austin Butler, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Christian Bale have all been rumored to be in the cast. Heat currently owns a 84% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 76 score on Metacritic, and a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. But, as usual, we cannot do this by ourselves, so we bring in a Heat superfan, our returning celebrity guest, a film producer with credits on Tollbooth, Madhouse, and Killer Date, making his third appearance on the show to date. The movie mogul of Tinseltown, please welcome back Ralph Esparza.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here, especially to discuss Heat. I'm really pumped.
Glad to hear it. I think that I may have let it slip at some point here that this is a movie that I recognize so many people's passion for this movie specifically, and it's one that I don't dislike, but it's not one that I'm necessarily passionate about. That being said, I put it strategically on our list because I know other people are very passionate about the movie, one. But two, I also felt like this was a movie my dad needed to see. I knew he had not seen it before, So this is kind of one where I've tried to set him up to see if he would like it and how he kind of appreciates the movie. I think I might enjoy the movie more after our discussion of the movie than necessarily as I've watched it, but I've seen it now 3 times and I've grown in an appreciation for it each and every time, including this last one where I think I found the movie more accessible than ever before. So let's start there, Dad. You
Okay.
have not seen this film before. What were your first impressions?
2 things that I noted. One is the complex relationship of women with either men who do not necessarily treat them the best, which I've seen many times in my career. The other is that I've said since I practiced criminal defense law that there's a very thin blue line between police officer and criminal. And this movie highlights that point.
Yes, I think you've mentioned it quite a few times on the show, your, let's say, criminal defense work. And so you'd be ideally placed to know the difference between the two because you'd be one of the few points of middle ground, a fence in between those two groups. But at the same time, I think one of the layers that people really appreciate about the movie is how much overlap they seem to have between De Niro and Pacino in this specifically, that they seem to be two sides of the same coin.
Well, it's not two sides of the same coin. It's the same coin, but with two sides. One comes at it from one direction, the other comes at it from a different direction. And it's one of the reasons why when we see things like police brutality, it does not shock me because there are certain elements of people who go into police work that probably shouldn't. They just like the idea of the power and having the ability to carry a weapon. There are some that are very public service conscious, very, very, very careful of what the image is they're trying to convey, and they're very good at what they do. And unfortunately, there's a small group of them that can cause big problems for the rest of the profession. But that goes without saying in any profession. There's enough of my profession that's stolen money and took advantage of clients sexually, and unfortunately.
I think one of the universal parts of the movie is that while we're investing in these two primary leads, one of the reasons that we're able to is that it humanizes them in a way that's not usually accessible when it's cops and robbers type of situation. They feel very foreign, and so we're able to kind of like distance ourselves from them. This humanizes them in a way that feels like any man who really gets into their job to the neglect of anything else around them. And it's not just that each man is so innately focused on the task ahead of them, but that could apply to a football coach or a CEO or anybody who really invests themselves in what they find to be their identity, also being part of their job. And both of these people very much identify with what it is that they do here.
Let me add, very rarely do I watch a film where I'm literally rooting for the good guy and the bad guy at the same time. You know, I think there's a lot of ourselves in each of these characters to some degree or another. Not to say that I'm doing scores and robbing banks, things like that, but just a lot of, a lot of what these characters are going through. I could relate to some of this stuff that I've gone through in my life. Let me also throw in that this is based off of a true story. A lot of viewers don't realize that, Michael Mann, the director, through a friend, heard about this convict that was named Neil McCauley, which is the same character De Niro plays. And he was, there was a cop in Las Vegas who was Vincent Hanna's role, Pacino's character. And that's how this project was born. There's a lot of things that happened in the film that really happened, in real life. So that alone even kicks this up another notch for me. But yeah, I was rooting for both, to be honest with you. I wanted De Niro. I don't want to be a spoiler alert guy here, but I wanted De Niro to get away at the end. I really did, and you could see him going through this angst as he's driving the car. And then he gives us one little smile, and then he just turns the wheel and says, "Screw it, I'm going to get this Waingro." And you know what happens then. But yeah, pretty intense.
Well, let's take this off the table here. This is nearly a 30-year-old movie. By the time this comes out, it'll be a few days short of its 30th anniversary. If you've not seen the movie, I'm not sure why you're listening to this, but we're not going to be careful with spoilers. So you're off the hook. Yes, Neil McCauley dies.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say this, if you haven't seen it on the big screen, judge it as much as you want, but you have to have seen it on the big screen. I saw it on the big screen when it was released in the 90s. Amazing because of the sound alone, just that shootout. I saw it again last year, Quentin Tarantino's theater in LA. He played a 35 millimeter print of it that he owns. And I took my daughter, who's a Heat fan, and we sat there just, mesmerized. And it was such a great communal experience with the entire audience laughing and cheering when they were supposed to, right? So, big screen experience with Heat is a must for sure.
So, Dad, did you like the movie?
Yes. Like I said, what the superpower of this movie is the ability to see the inner workings, the character of the individuals, their personal lives, and how their relationships and such, and that's humanizes not just one side but both sides. It's seldom that you see the individual or the human element of this, the clear, the domestic aspect, the struggles to maintain their personal relationships and such, and to have an identity outside of what they are. But ultimately what ends up happening is they are who they are, and that's all they can be said. And ultimately it leads to one's death and the other killing him, but being alone in the process because his marriage falls apart after, I believe he had been married before.
3 times. Yeah.
3 times. Yeah.
Well, this was his third, right?
Third. Well, and I'm sure there will be a fourth. If the character was to be further developed, there will be a fourth, because hope springs eternal.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head with the whole domestic aspects of this. A lot of movies just show the cops and robbers. Michael Mann went the extra step. We see the wives, the girlfriends, their characters. Like you said, it humanizes them. And I think that's so important. I also, the city of Los Angeles at night, the way Michael Mann captured that's how it is, right? I grew up there. I don't live there anymore, but that's how the city, it's like a jungle at night, and he used all these blue filters to make it like this really cool polarized look. But it is a jungle, and I see Pacino's character as the hunter and De Niro as the prey, right? That's the way I see it. And that's Pacino's a hunter. That's what he is. That's what he does 24/7. It's his blood, which is the reason why his marriages don't work, because he's in love with his job more than his wife's.
Well, and I don't think there's room for him to be anything other than that, because his identity is so wrapped up into everything that he's doing. I think there's an important scene early on where he talks about being on edge and having this angst constantly present for him because that keeps him sharp and that allows him to do his job effectively. But at the same time, it makes it impossible for him to maintain a certain relationship past a certain point. You can obviously have the infatuation and all the other things, but as somebody gets to know you and truly understand what you are, and they need more from you, and you're not willing to grow with them in any meaningful way, that stunts your ability as a person to be anything different. And that's why all of these relationships fail.
No, Pacino's married to his career or his occupation, and his marriages are nothing more than affairs.
Great analogy. I love that. Yeah, I haven't heard that before. It's true.
So while we were watching the film the other evening, Dad, and we happened to be together because we were together for Thanksgiving, you had related to me. I think we watched it probably about the first hour we got through on one day. Then we went back and we watched the second hour on like Sunday or something like that. And then had dinner in between before we finished the film. And I think it was between that last half an hour or so, as we were about to turn it back on, where you said something to the effect of, I've never really heard of this film before, other than you mentioning it being on the schedule, but this is really good. Why haven't I heard about this before? And I think that there's a contingent of very loyal, very passionate people that have brought this movie to the fore, because I'll admit, until probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I had never heard of this film. And it was only through other podcasters being so promotional, hitting you over the head with how much that they loved this movie, that it's kind of maintained its status. It's not on a lot of great critics lists. It's kind of it's a fans movie. And so, being on the outside of this, why would you say this movie has such a high cult following, if you were to place a guess?
I'll tell you one of the big reasons. It's the first time you've seen Pacino and De Niro share the screen together in one scene. That alone is huge, because, yeah, they were in Godfather 2, but they were never, they were decades apart. They never shared the screen together. For Pacino to pull him over on the freeway and say, hey, let's grab a cup of coffee. I mean, this is who he's been hunting. Let's go grab a cup of coffee. What the hell is that? And they sit there, two guys sharing a cup of coffee, sharing about their lives, and basically say, if I have to put you down, I'm going to put you down. And likewise. I mean, to have these two powerhouse actors on screen, these iconic actors, I think that's huge right there. There's a lot of fans of both actors who are waiting to see this happen. Michael Mann, the director, incredible body of work. Last of the Mohicans, going all the way back to Manhunter, The Insider with Russell Crowe and Pacino, another fantastic film. But Michael Mann's body of work is something to be spoken for as well. And I cannot wait for the next prequel / sequel of this to come out. And by the way, it was announced today DiCaprio is on board. I read that today. It's not just rumored anymore. The other ones, nothing yet, but I heard DiCaprio is on board.
Okay. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Hopefully playing a part that's commiserate with his age this time.
Yeah, exactly. Really quick too. So the music, the soundtrack, I think was ahead of its time a little bit. There's a lot of instrumental keyboard kind of music in the background. Wasn't your typical, cops and robbers, dramatic score. It was really kind of a techno sound, which I thought added to the scenes as well. So that for me was another plus. And of course the acting, the cast that Mann assembled was just top notch.
I mean, there are a lot of really great actors that go on to do a lot of other bigger things. I mean, Danny Trejo, Dennis Haysbert, Ted Levine. I mean, people that have had good character actor careers that people may recognize them. They may not know their names, but that have gone on to fairly good, recognizable careers. But then at the middle of it, as you mentioned, it is this almost like a prize fight or a certain sporting event where you have two people that have been somewhat in the same orbit for a very long time, but have never completely crossed paths, and they're coming together in this one way. I think that might be an apt way of describing why it has such an affection for certain people.
They had a mutual respect for each other, right? Pacino respected what De Niro, not respected what he did, but how good he was, right? I mean, for him to grab his hand at the end and hold his hand so he wouldn't die alone, that right there, my God. I mean, I didn't expect that when I first saw that, for him to reach down and hold his hand. That's probably doesn't happen in real life. Maybe it does, but that just showed me right there. And then there's a close up on Pacino. All you see is his eyes. Man, was that great acting. His eyes are just like, wow, contemplating everything, his life, De Niro, just everything you can see in his eyes. Such an amazing scene.
Dad, do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. Heat is a crime thriller that stars Al Pacino as Lieutenant Vincent Hanna, a dedicated Los Angeles police detective, and Robert De Niro as Neil McCauley, a highly skilled professional thief. Both men are the best at what they do, and their lives begin to collide as McCauley's crew plans a major bank robbery. McCauley leads a disciplined team that includes characters played by Val Kilmer and Tom Sizemore. They try to stay ahead of the law while preparing for one last big score. Hanna, who is obsessed with catching them, struggles to balance his dangerous job with his strained home life. When the final robbery goes wrong, it leads to a dramatic chase through the streets of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Dad. So what is the movie about? I think we've kind of discussed a lot of things having related to the movie generally, but to you, if you were to place it in like one sentence, an elevator pitch per se, what would it be? Well, if I have to take a stab at it, I have my ready-made response here. I think it's the intimate nature of lawmen and robbers who both live very broken lives. And to expand on that, I saw something yesterday where I think it was a therapist on like TikTok or something, kind of describing intellectual people, much like myself, for whom talk therapy never seems to actually help you or really aid in anything because you're so self-aware of everything. You've mechanized or created this defense system where you're so hyper aware of every flaw in yourself, but you're incapable of actually allowing yourself to feel things because you're so removed and experiencing things from like a third person almost point of view most of the time. I think both of these men are so good at their job and so hyper aware and self-aware of all the little flaws and ticks. And frankly, that's why De Niro can hear the small sound in the van and walk away in the middle of this film. But at the same time, these men are so completely broken. They're incapable of actually feeling anything. To a degree, maybe Pacino has left that behind, and he signals it by the end of the film. But maybe the reason that Vincent Hanna gets the upper end on Neil McCauley is Neil allows himself one last opportunity to feel with Edie, and that's what's made him less sharp. And so he ends up losing in the end as a result.
His comment or his statement was, I am alone, but I am not lonely. Okay. Which basically says he has everything he wants within his purview and his control. Whereas, and I was thinking about this comment, there's a lot of people, and I would probably put myself in that, is that I am not alone, but I am a lonely type person. I feel like I need to have constant interaction with people. Otherwise, I feel lonely and unfulfilled, I guess would be the word.
Sure.
So,
to throw in really quickly, that scene where De Niro hears that noise across the street in the truck, that's based off a true event. So that's another thing that really happened. So when I see that, I'm like, wow.
When you're in a top of a profession, things happen and you become so in tune with them. For example, really good, and I would not put myself into that category by any stretch of the imagination, trial lawyer, has the ability to read a witness's response to know that there's something not being said. I've seen it done in certain trials. There have been times I've been able to do it. It's not as much as I would have loved to have done it. I probably would have been able to retire by now if I was better at it.
No, but there are things you definitely look for or listen for that you're able to pick up on. And whether you give yourself credit or not, I mean, you obviously have a certain track record of success that would indicate otherwise. I mean, I think you bragged about it last week that you have more wins than losses in criminal defense, which
Yeah, I do.
so there you go on that front. And I'm sure we'll come to you with some lawyerly or legal questions by the end of this, so we can again continue to tease this TikTok series that's just never going to happen. Dana, legal advice or fictional legal advice, something to that effect.
We need to do a show like on The Verdict that starred Paul Newman, or And Justice for All with Al Pacino. If you've seen those, fantastic films. Yeah.
There's so many legal dramas from the 90s, like going through any of John Grisham, all those John Grisham novels that got made into something. Yeah. The Rainmaker, all of those.
This in part started because of my comment when we did The Verdict. And I commented that
we haven't done The Verdict.
I was going to say, wait a second. I want to be part of that one.
Oh, yeah, we didn't, did we? We did it on...
We talked about The Verdict on Andrew's show.
Yeah. Okay.
A couple of months back.
Yeah, well, I had commented that he played it wrong, which is what he does is he doesn't disclose anything. He has the win because all he has to do is the minute he finds out about it is he lets the jury play it out. And if the jury comes back and awards him things, he goes to James Mason and says, hey, do you want to get disbarred? You might want to recommend to your client that they not appeal. And if he loses, then he has a mistrial.
Anyway, back to this movie. At the center of the movie, again, is the two primary actors. What exactly makes these two, De Niro and Pacino specifically, probably the two greatest actors of their generation, but I think you could arguably make a case they're minimally top 25 actors of all time.
Really quick, I'll throw in too, something that was in the script and not on the screen. They didn't show it. Al Pacino's character snorted cocaine. So when you see Al Pacino do these crazy things, like she's got a big, all these things he does, and he just has these outbursts, a lot of that's because he's on coke. And, that was not shown on screen. Michael Mann said it would be a distraction if they show Pacino snorting coke. Here we go, Scarface or something, But so they left it out and just let that behavior stay in. But that's interesting.
Give me all the facts you got, Ralph. Give me all you got.
I tell you, I watched the making of all the behind the scenes. I'm just huge fan. So, and got to drive down the street where they did the shootout. Took my daughter there last year before we went to see it on the big screen, and we drove down the street 3 or 4 times around the block, the bank where they did the heist, and the street right there, the park where Sizemore gets shot. I mean, it's all right there. So we took video, and it was fun. It was fun to be there.
I know there was one thing that I read that this is one of the rare movies that's not performed for any part of it on a soundstage.
Exactly right. All filmed on location. Yeah, very, very good point to bring up. The location managers, I saw an interview with them. They literally drove all over LA and just found locations and presented a bunch to Michael Mann. Yes, no. What a fun job that must have been. But yeah, all practical locations. Excellent point.
I was going to just comment back to your original question about De Niro and Pacino. There are actors who can play parts. There are actors whose parts they make their own by just being themselves. These two have a knack for pulling the part and wrapping themselves in it so that even though they are themselves, they really do play a part. And it's a very distinct feeling that you get. I think Jack Nicholson does it. The few times that I thought John Wayne really was great is when he did it. Instead of just being John Wayne, it was being John Wayne being part of the character. And that was The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, probably True Grit. I think those are probably, and to some extent, his last film, The Shootist. I think those were probably his 3 best acting performances. So again, it's that knack.
They were always compared to each other too over the years. De Niro, Pacino, who's better. And, there's always some sort of competition. And they've even acknowledged that point. So for them to just push that aside and do this together, just kind of shut all those people up that always said that. But it was nice to see them on the big screen for sure.
Yeah, I would probably venture. I've been critical on this program multiple times of saying, and I don't mean this as a diss, but there are certain actors who are very good at playing themselves in different situations. Tom Hanks immediately comes to mind. I love Tom Hanks. He's great in pretty much whatever he does. But Tom Hanks is always being Tom Hanks in whatever he's doing. That's why he's the everyman, because Tom Hanks is just an average guy that you can place in the middle of a World War II battle, or you can place on an island alone by himself, or a gay lawyer with AIDS, or the baseball coach who had life handed to him rough. Any of those, Tom Hanks is being the same character. And I don't think there are very many transformational actors. I think that De Niro has the ability to transform, but within a limited range of people. Like, he's not going to go out and play a lot of the roles that Tom Hanks would. But when De Niro takes on a role, he so embodies the character that it feels transformative, that he becomes whatever this is, which is why we have Travis Bickle and Jake LaMotta and Neil McCauley. Similarly, like, Pacino has a very limited range as well. And I think there's kind of a weird point in time when he's selected certain projects, like the 90s, he got a little amped up. Like, I know the character's supposed to do coke, but I would not be surprised if Al was doing some extra stuff during the 90s between Son of a Woman and Devil's Advocate and some of these other ones, that he kind of goes for it with some almost level of unintentional comedy. But this is one where he was able to bring that intensity in a way that really made sense for this character and translated it, because he's got this theater background to him that allows him to play these boisterous parts, but maybe at times not get out of character, or at least make it seem that even when he does, for some, overplay it, that it's still within the character's bounds.
Well said. Well said. Like I said, I'm a big Pacino fan. Yeah, he's done some films where I'm like, whoa, that's a little over the top there, but yeah, I mean, the 90s, he won the Oscar for Scent of a Woman. I think he should have won it before for other films, to be honest with you. Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, things like that. It was almost like a gift to him that year, I think. But yeah, I agree 100%. And De Niro, I think him playing this role in a reserved way that he does just works, right? He was just really kind of cool and calm, really cool cat, and didn't really get all crazy and yell and things, and where we had Pacino doing all that. So there was that, there was that balance there. I thought De Niro knocked it out of the park big time on this.
Did you know? As many already know, rather than dubbing in the gunshots during the bank robbery shootout, Michael Mann had microphones carefully placed around the set so that the audio could be captured live. This added to the impact of the scene because it sounded like no other gunfight shown on screen. Did you know? In an interview with Al Pacino on the DVD special edition, Pacino revealed that for the scene in the restaurant between Hanna and McCauley, Robert De Niro felt that the scene should not be rehearsed so that the unfamiliarity between the two characters would seem more genuine. Michael Mann agreed and shot the scene with no practice rehearsals. Did you know? Val Kilmer was thrilled to learn the moment in the gunfight scene where he runs out of bullets and rapidly changes his magazine is regularly shown to Marine recruits as an example of how to perform the action properly. According to Kilmer, a trainer once said, "If you can't change a clip as fast as this actor, get out of my army."
Yeah, that shootout alone, the sound on that, you touched on that. the sound editors were adding all these different sounds in post-production, and Michael Mann's like, wait a second, that's not what I want. They're like, what do you want? And he wanted the real sound that they recorded, the live sound from that day, which is just absolutely amazing. And in the theater, hearing it go from speaker to speaker as you're sitting there is just mind-blowing.
I don't think there's probably anything like it.
You're right. You're right.
Did you know? Val Kilmer stated the main reason he chose to act in this film was so that he could be able to call Al Pacino and Robert De Niro Al and Bob for the rest of his life. I mean, that's got to be a pretty good perk. From what I know, if you were in tight with De Niro on anything, he would regularly invite you over to Sunday night dinner. Like, I think Jennifer Lawrence has talked about going to eat at Uncle Bob's or whatever. Did you know? Waingro, Kevin Gage, is based on a real Chicago criminal named Waingro, who ratted out some influential Chicago criminals. According to Michael Mann, Waingro went missing. His body was found in northern Mexico, where it had been nailed to the wall of a shed.
I didn't know that.
Also, when Kevin Gage went to prison in like the early 2000s, he got called Waingro in prison by everybody. So, not a great thing to necessarily be known for, but fair enough.
He was a bad dude in that movie. Not a good guy.
No.
Well acted as well.
I have a feeling he'd fall in very quickly with the Aryans.
Yeah, I think so.
Did you know? Michael Mann made the movie as a tribute to a detective friend of his in Chicago who obsessively tracked and killed a thief named Neil McCauley he had once met under non-violent circumstances. And I got to think that that's where the scene in the middle of the movie kind of comes from. So, with that, we will take our first break, and we'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 292nd episode, we welcome back Jen and Sarah of Movies and Us to discuss Raging Bull from 1980, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader and Mardik Martin, cinematography by Michael Chapman, music by Jim Henriksen, editing by Thelma Schoonmaker, starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Frank Vincent. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Before we move on much further, Ralph, what are you working on and where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Ralph_Esparza, I believe. I think that's what it is. IMDb as well. Got some projects in development, early stages, looking at a couple of great actors, actresses out there to attach to what I'm working on right now. So I'm waiting to hear back from agents and managers and all that fun stuff. But yeah, exciting. I hope 2026 should be a great year.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. And as always, if anybody wants to reach out to Ralph, all of his links will be available both in the show notes as well as on the website. But that takes us to yet again our latest reveals of the Cinema Legacy poll rankings. Last week we left you off at numbers 15 through 11. Just a quick recap of those films. 15 was Citizen Kane, 14 Alien, 13 Goodfellas, 12 The Empire Strikes Back, 11 The Godfather Part 2. I'm sure you've been waiting on pins and needles. It's taken 10 weeks to get here, but here are the first 5 of the top 10. At number 10, Pulp Fiction from 1994. Number 9, Schindler's List from 1993. Number 8, my number 1 on my list that I submitted. So I think this should be higher, but it's number 8 here. 12 Angry Men from 1957. Number 7, the episode that came out today in real time, so a week ahead of this because we record these a week in advance, but that we discussed last week, Alfred Hitchcock's seminal movie, Psycho from 1960. And finally, the last movie on our list this week, number 6, 1952 with Gene Kelly, Singin' in the Rain. Dad, Initial reactions.
I had Schindler's as my number one, so I thought it should be higher.
Nice.
But overall, I think that there's a few there that I would have liked to have seen higher, but I think 12 Angry Men probably could have been higher, but I can't find fault. Only thing I would say is that maybe I'm the only one who thinks this, but I don't think Pulp Fiction is Tarantino's best film.
I don't either. I know it ranks highly on both the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast list and this list, but I have some other films of his that I have included ahead of it. I will say, I think you and I are the top two with most individual films from our own top 10 in the top 10 of the official list. I will say from my list, which I have not revealed the full extent to the public, I had 7, which is more than anybody. The only 3 from my top 10 that did not make the list at all, well, one did not make the list at all, and that was Harakiri, which we've talked about previously, which I think is a crime. But, okay, I'll move on. The only other 2 that were not in my top 10 that ended up making the full top 10, I did not have Singing in the Rain in my top 10. Not that I'm against it by any means, but I just didn't have it there. And Pulp Fiction was the other one.
I don't think I had Pulp Fiction on my list at all. maybe not. I think I had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on there. But I'm not sure if Pulp Fiction was.
I think there's a case to be made that Inglourious Bastards might be his best. I think you could make a very good case that Hollywood is his best. For a while, I thought Reservoir Dogs actually was better than Pulp Fiction, but
I still think that too.
Me too. I like Jackie Brown too.
Yep.
I think Jackie Brown's a cool movie.
So that is Tarantino's 4th film on the list. Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs, and Inglourious Bastards all made it on the list. They're just at lower ebbs. But this is by far his highest ranking one. And I would say, and since we've made a very loose definition of what is or is not a comedy, this is the highest ranking comedy, I believe, left on the list. Yes, it is somewhat of a crime drama and a thriller, but it's got so many funny moments to it that seems almost intentionally the holiest of holies, the Big Kahuna Burger, the way that Christopher Walken comes in. Yeah, it's funny. So
Yeah. Schindler's List. Wow, Dana, I didn't know you were such a big fan of that film. I think it was spectacular. I mean, it is a masterclass in filmmaking. Spielberg's best ever, and probably will be his best ever. I remember watching that with my mother. My mother was so upset she got up and walked out of the theater because it was so unsettling, some of the scenes. And I had to go out and chase her out in the lobby, and she finally came back in. But man, that really moved her. It was like a documentary. I think it was on my top 10. So it just, yeah, almost just a perfect movie, man. And to do it in black and white, just brilliant.
Yes.
I don't think anybody can deny its power, its impact, its influence, and how well made the movie is. If you have anything ahead of it, it's simply because it's a little more enjoyable, because Schindler's is just so devastating to watch that it is not something that you're just lightly going to throw on. You have to consciously choose to put yourself in that environment because of how heavy and how well made the movie is. But it no less deadens the impact of what that is. And I will say, for all 5 of these movies this week, we've covered 3 of them at least twice, and we've covered all of them at least once, including Schindler's was our 250th episode earlier this year. So you can catch any of these and what our full extent of comments are at any point. But I've had Schindler's at number 1 on my top ranked best pictures list for the last 2 years. I don't see it necessarily moving down anytime soon, given the current environment that we're in. And you got to hand it off. I mean, Steven Spielberg now ties Kurosawa with most films on the list so far at 5.
Wow.
It is not his last film on the list. I'm sure everybody can tell there's going to be one more that will be ahead of it, but he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
I'll say this, being the biggest Pacino fan this side of the Mississippi, I seriously think Liam Neeson should have won the award that year. His performance was freaking amazing, you know.
Who actually won it in 93? Because Pacino was 92 and he beat out Denzel in Malcolm X.
But did he? Okay, so well, no, Scent of Woman came out. Okay, I thought Liam Neeson was going. No, Liam Neeson was against Pacino. I remember going to the Golden Globes that year, and Liam Neeson was on the red carpet as well as Pacino, and I think they were both there for Best Actor. I might be wrong.
Let me just take a look here. I think this is, if it's not already been covered by the
Maybe.
Oh, it was Tom Hanks for Philadelphia beat Neeson for Schindler's, Anthony Hopkins for The Remains of the Day, Lawrence Fishburne for What's Love Got to Do with It, and Daniel Day-Lewis in The Name of the Father. So the previous year would have been Pacino winning for Scent of a Woman over Downey for Chaplin, Clint Eastwood for Unforgiven, Stephen Rea for The Crying Game.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with him, and Denzel for
Yeah.
Malcolm X. That's been the big controversy for a long time is that Denzel should have gotten Pacino's Oscar that year, but Pacino should have gotten the Oscar for Godfather 2 back in 74 instead of
Right.
why am I drawing a blank on his name? The TV actor that Harry and Tonto.
Oh, Art Carney.
Art Carney, yeah.
I'll tell you this. I was driving through the hills one time. I don't know, going to lunch or something in Hollywood, up in the hills. That's where the lady I worked for, she was a director. But Ray Fiennes drove up next to me. I remember he was driving a black convertible Saab. If you remember what the Saabs look like, and I looked over at him. And I kind of got this like goosebumps, not because I was like, I'm right next to this guy, but because he freaked me out because he played his character so well in Schindler's List. When I saw him in person, I was like, whoa, wait a second, kind of weird.
How he didn't win for supporting, I have no idea.
I know. I don't know who won that year, but yeah.
I just hit it up too, and now I closed out of it.
Sorry.
No,
I know Pacino's nominated one year for Best Supporting and Best Actor. For Glengarry Glen Ross, I think.
Yeah, 92 he was up for both. And he's great in Glengarry.
He's great.
The amount of times I quote Glengarry during business hours is obscene, but we'll save that for another day and another podcast. But some additional factoids here on our 5 honorees this evening. Our 11th horror film on the list in Psycho, joining Alien, Jurassic Park, The Silence of the Lambs, The Shining, The Exorcist, Nosferatu, Train to Busan, Night of the Living Dead 7, and The Thing. We still have one horror film left to reveal.
I think I know what that is.
You probably do. This is our 7th different musical with Singing in the Rain, joining The Sound of Music, The Red Shoes, West Side Story, Cabaret, All That Jazz, and Beauty and the Beast. Only 2 musicals left higher on the list. And let me just make sure that... No, there's only 1 musical left higher on the list. I was going to say,
wow.
I apparently forgot to change that out.
Can you give a hint as to what decade that musical came out?
Let's just say it's before 1960.
Oh, okay. All right. Wasn't what I thought.
You'll definitely know when it comes out. So, but that's next week. We added 1 more Best Picture winner to the list this week with Schindler's List. We so far have 26 winners total announced on the list, and at least 1 from each decade. We have 2 from the 20s, 3 from the 30s, 2 from the 40s, 3 from the 50s, 4 from the 1960s, 3 from the 70s now, 3 from the 90s, 1 from the 1980s, 2 from the 2000s, 2 from the 2010s, and 1, the lone film from the 2020s in Oppenheimer from 2023. As I mentioned before, this is Quentin Tarantino's 4th and last film on the list, with Pulp Fiction joining Inglourious Basterds at number 107, and Jackie Brown and Reservoir Dogs were tied at number 120.
Wow.
Steven Spielberg now has 5 recognized films on the list, with Schindler's List joining Raiders of the Lost Ark at 19, Jurassic Park at 23, Saving Private Ryan at 63, and E.T. at 72. He joins Akira Kurosawa as the most films on the list to this point.
What are those films? Can you just drop those really quick? Akira's?
For Kurosawa?
Yes.
Rashomon, Ran, Ikiru, Seven Samurai, and high and low.
Okay.
That sounds right. Without immediately looking through it, I think those are the 5. This is our third and last appearance for Sidney Lumet on the list, with 12 Angry Men joining Network at number 39 and Dog Day Afternoon at number 56. Obviously, our fourth and final Alfred Hitchcock film on the list, with Psycho joining Vertigo at 18, Rear Window at number 32, and Rebecca at number 104. And, as many assumed, the only Stanley Donen or Gene Kelly film on the list, with Singing in the Rain. Director breakdown to this point: Kurosawa and Spielberg at 5, 4 apiece for Christopher Nolan, Alfred Hitchcock, and Quentin Tarantino, and 3 apiece for David Fincher, Stanley Kubrick, Paul Thomas Anderson, Billy Wilder, Martin Scorsese, and Sidney Lumet. Psycho is the highest-ranking movie of the 1960s, so there will be no higher 60s movies remaining. Singing in the Rain is the highest-ranking movie of the 1950s, so we don't have any from that decade either. We don't have any remaining yet from the 1980s, as The Empire Strikes Back was our highest remaining film on the list from there. We've already revealed that There Will Be Blood is the highest ranking film and the last film from the 2000s. Parasite is the highest ranking film and the last film from the 2010s. Obviously, Oppenheimer is the only film from the 2020s, so that's the lone film there in that decade. And Nosferatu was the highest ranking film of the 1920s. The breakdown by decade: 4 films from the 1920s, 5 from the 1930s, 9 from the 1940s, 13 from the 1950s, 11 from the 60s, 15 films from the 1970s. 1980s has 13 films recognized so far, a whopping 22 films from the 1990s, 12 from the 2000s, 10 from the 2010s, and then that lone 1 film from the 2020s. So, any final thoughts here on these 5?
No, all good. All good. Psycho. I'll drop another story here. So, really quick. So, I worked at Universal. This is before I got into any type of filmmaking or anything. I was actually working up on the tour, right? And after hours, one summer, we would close literally at midnight. There would still be tourists there taking the tour and all that. And after hours, we would close a park, and me and some buddies would walk down to the back lot, and I got to walk in the Psycho house, which I thought was pretty damn cool. You know, it was a little freaky. It's just a set, nothing's in there, but the door kind of creaked open, and it was just a little weird, but just a great memory, So I got to stand on Orca, one of the boats used in Jaws. We snuck down to Jaws Lake, and I got to do that. And so some great memories. But yeah, that Psycho house was a little freaky. Nothing in there.
I'm sure. But before we move on here, Ralph, do you have any predictions on what might still be remaining in the top 5?
Let's go with The Exorcist.
That has already been revealed.
Has it? Oh, no.
The Exorcist is tied at number 59.
59? That's not good. I think that was on my top 10 too. Darn it. What am I leaving out? Well, Godfather, right? The first one, I would say.
Okay,
so Godfather, Jaws. If Jaws isn't on there, that's a travesty for sure. Let's see. I'm trying to think here. I'm looking around my room at posters. Shoot. No, I don't know. I mean, I could sit here all night listing movies. I don't know. Cool Hand Luke?
Cool Hand Luke did not make the final list. That I will reveal. But from a genre piece, we have 2 Best Picture winners still remaining to reveal. We have at least, I would say, 3 classic dramas that we have not said. A horror film. We said at least 1 Steven Spielberg film is still remaining. And we have at least 1 musical that's of very high repute. So if that's anything for anybody, I'm sure to a degree you could probably name what's remaining. There are 5 films left. It's some pretty obvious names.
There Will Be Blood.
That was 21.
Okay. You have all these memorized, or you have a list in front of you?
I have the list in front of me.
Okay. So you're pretty good.
I will memorize the list slowly over the next, couple of months or so, because people will be asking me all the
Right,
time
right.
yet, but
Yes.
That'd be awesome to just know it offhand. Oh, that was number 21. That was number 59.
yeah.
That'd be great.
Well, the tricky part's going to be all these random ties, and especially any of the ones where it's like 3 movies tied, or
Yeah.
where the ties are like all grouped in this weird bunching. You know, like I think one week we had 3 sets of ties all back to back to back, so it was a little odd that way. But yeah, for at least the rough top 50 of the list, we haven't had really any ties. We have 1 set of ties at 42. Otherwise, the next set of ties is until 59, with The Graduate and The Exorcist tying at 59. But yeah. So 2 more weeks left to go. By the time this comes out, this will be the 10th of December. So that means that, yet again, we'll reveal the next 3 next week. So 5 through number 3. So 5, 4, and 3 will be revealed next week. And our final 2 will be on our last episode of the season that comes out on Christmas Eve. So you can find out the full list there. You can follow us on any of our socials at GMOAT Podcast. Or you can find the full list that has been revealed so far on RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMOAT Podcast. So you can get the full 120 plus ties. Sans, of course, the top 5 that we have not yet revealed. But by Christmas and New Year's, you'll be able to see the full extent of the list and then do all of your own factoids and director breakdowns and decade breakdowns as much as you want. But have fun with whatever's left, guys, because we only have those 2 more weeks, and then we set up for whatever's next, our next iteration next year. We will be taking fan suggestions. I think what we're going to let our participants do is vote on what we want the next version of the list to be. I think the leading sentiment in the clubhouse right now is either the top 50 horror films or the top 50 comedies.
That's cool.
But we'll see. I think one of these times we'll have to do a breakdown by decade. And so we'll do the top 50 films of the 1950s or something, something like that. And try and break it down that way. But there's a lot of different iterations that we could do. We could do best directors, we could do best actors, best performances in a single role or something to that effect, most iconic roles, best musical scores. There's a lot of possibilities, and we're not sure what will be next, and we don't want to necessarily limit it either, but we're glad people are excited to see whatever the next version is going to be as well. So that does it for the Cinema Legacy poll for yet another week. Please stay tuned for our final 2 reveals and the top 5 yet to come. But we left off at best performance. Dad, who do you have down?
I have Michael Mann. As much as you talk about Pacino and De Niro and such, the script and the directing in this film were stellar. Quite frankly, I stopped to think about it. If I could find 2 fairly random actors and put those in the parts, would the film still work? So I came up with Nicolas Cage and Robin Williams.
Okay, who's in which role? Nick Cage has got to be Vincent Hanna for the overacting of it. Okay.
Yes. All right. I think if you put those 2 in, the film would not be as good, but it would still be credible.
Man, is that such a weird film thought?
Robin's done some really good dramatic roles. He was Insomnia with Pacino. He was a great, bad guy.
I don't doubt either of their bona fide. If you would have done this in the mid-90s when they were both in their acting primes,
yes.
Because Cage would have been coming off of his Oscar win for Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So his dramatic ability at this time probably wouldn't have been in question, and it's before some of his other more schlocky roles from the 2000s and such. Whereas Robin would be somewhere in the middle of, in the mid 90s yet. This is kind of before Patch Adams, and it's definitely before he wins for Good Will Hunting, but he's kind of in between that middle ground there yet, where he's doing the genie for Aladdin, yet he also had done Dead Poets. So it's not like he hadn't done dramatic roles, but it always had a hint of comedy to it. I don't know if he pulls off the stoicism of a Neil McCauley, but he probably would have made it his own.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, the point being is that was my thought. That's why I went with Michael Mann.
I think from a totality standpoint, and we often rely or fall back on this position, he wrote the thing. He was in such tactical control of the entire movie. He had tried to get multiple other directors to take on this project. He wanted to turn it at one point into a TV show that was kind of Miami Vice-like. He had tried to turn this over, but nobody else wanted to do it. So it's kind of been his passion project at this point by the time it's actually made for like 20 years. I don't know if anybody else could have done it in the same style and done it the justice that he does, but he has such a singular look, feel, appreciation for the location, for this story, for the actors that he's embedding. So yes, I say it's got to be Michael Mann for me.
I would have to agree with you too as well. With a special little shout out, as small of a role as it was, Tom Sizemore, who's no longer with us, but Tom Sizemore, for some reason, when he was on screen, and a lot of things that he's done, he was a good actor, and when he asked De Niro's character, do you think it's the right thing to do? And De Niro's like, hey man, I'm out here after this. It's up. You do what you want to do. You're set. You got money saved. If I were you, I'd get out. And Sizemore, he doesn't get out. I think he says something like, for me, the
action is the juice.
Exactly. And I mean, just his eyes, everything. So yeah, but Michael Mann, of course, like you said, wrote it, directed it, got Pacino and De Niro involved. I think he had some help with a co-producer to get De Niro. Mann got Pacino, but yeah, as soon as they were locked in, sky's the limit. So yeah, I mean, performance, definitely Michael Mann. Off-screen performance.
As far as best secondary performance, I have De Niro here. I think he acts the shit out of this movie. It could have been a throwaway. Again, like, there are a lot of garbage crime films, like gritty stuff that people have, and it's like a basic heist film premise that are really entertaining and enjoyable, but they don't rise to a certain level of quality that this has. And I think he's somewhat directly responsible for having that. He's got this quiet coolness to him throughout the film, that he's in total control of his faculties up until the moment that he turns around to go get Waingro. And even then, in that scene where he's clearly acting on impulse and emotion, there's still just this demeanor about him that he has everything under control throughout the course of the movie that you just find so engaging and charismatic about him. And you're rooting for him, even though you know he's supposed to be the bad guy, because you think he's above all of it. He's the guy that's keeping all of his guys in line. He's the guy that's masterminding all of these plans. He's got to be so careful and calculating. He cannot make any mistakes. He's just so good. And it's pulling in the Travis Bickles and the Jake LaMotta's that he's done for years of this just stoic guy, but without having to rise to the level of the I'm the boss or you talking to me. So he doesn't have to go that extra step, and his ability to keep it in check throughout the movie, I think, aids to why people love it as much as they do.
They did take after take after take, that final scene in the car when he's driving with Edie. And finally, on one take, he does that little smile, right? He's contemplating, and he smiles like, I'm going to blow this guy away, man. And then he just turns a wheel. Michael Mann said, that's it. He nailed it with that little smile, He hadn't done that in the previous take. So, yeah, what a performance.
I have De Niro also. What his performance was is he made what most of the time is, I mean, most crimes are passion, not well planned, thought through. He made this into a professional. He is portraying the person who, I am the smartest person in the room, and I don't have to make you believe I'm the smartest person in the room. My action says it all.
Exactly.
And so it's an understated performance, which overstates the character.
Well said. Yeah, my supporting choice is, I'm not even going to pick an actor. I'm going to go with the director of photography. he just captured the gritty underbelly of LA. I mean, better than I've seen on any film. Seriously, the images, the tint of blue they use. You know, De Niro standing against that big plate glass window by the beach in that house he had. All these images were just beautiful to look at. And for me, it's the director of photography. You know, it's just, he killed it.
As far as charismatic, I have Al Pacino here because you don't want the guy to catch him, but he's playing such a larger than life role, and he's playing somewhat loose by the hip, but you also know that he's at the top of his profession in what he's trying to do. And he's so unintentionally funny throughout the movie with how big he goes in so many different scenes that you can't not enjoy him, even if you're not necessarily rooting for him. I'm specifically rooting for De Niro throughout the course of the film, but that doesn't mean I'm not enjoying Al.
Yeah, I mean, you guys already know I'm a big Al Pacino fan, so for me, it's Al as well. The charisma, I mean, just literally drips off the screen when you're watching him. Anytime he's on screen, you know, he has my attention, and you know, he's almost becoming, or is, what he's chasing. You know, like you were saying earlier, Dan, there's a thin line, and you feel that, you know, with Pacino's character for sure. But yeah, I said it earlier, you have the real laid back, intense performance by De Niro, and then you have Pacino's, you know, with his little outbursts and things that he does on the other end. And there's that really cool balance of somebody that's kind of quiet and calm and collected, and then this other guy who's a little wild, the hunter guy. But yeah, Pacino for sure.
I went a little odd. I went with Amy Brenneman.
Okay.
Beautiful.
I thought her performance was innocent and charming, and then bewildered, and then ultimately, even though she's completely taken aback by his criminal behavior or career, she's willing to still forego that. And she does it in a way that's very believable. I was surprised that I hadn't seen her in other films until I did some checking and realized, oh, so she was the star of Grey's Anatomy that lasted for, 14 years or something like that?
Okay. I mean, I've never watched Grey's Anatomy, but I didn't think
I
she was
haven't either.
Meredith
That's how
Grey.
I didn't even recognize her. So, but she produced it and starred in it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Okay.
I know she was in a show called Amy, which was kind
Judging
of named
Amy.
after her. Judging
Yeah,
Amy,
she's
right?
not in Grey's Anatomy.
Well,
Dad.
then I missed then maybe it's Judging Amy that I missed.
And that did not go for that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
2 or
I
3
mean, she's
years,
been in
yeah.
The Leftovers. She was the girlfriend for Jeff Bridges in The Old Man. She's in
Yes.
Casper from 1995 as well. But like, she's had some bit parts here and there for a long time. She was in Private Practice, the TV show, for a
Okay.
long time. The Leftovers. So she's basically been on TV for most of her career, and then the occasional movie.
Yeah.
What a great
Okay.
character, though. What a great choice and a great character, because you wonder what her background is. You wonder what the backgrounds on all of these people in this film, but like her background, you know, what was up with that, and even Ashley Judd's character, you know, all these different characters in the film. I wanted to know more about each one, to be honest with you. Danny Trejo's character, I want to know about that guy. John Voight, you know, John Voight was amazing in this. So
I
yeah,
don't know,
just a
like,
hell of a cast.
what could be the backstory on a Trejo? But I'm sure we'll get to that likely in Heat 2. Like, he feels like he's been on that crew for a long time.
And he's a real ex-con, so I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah.
his backstory, you know?
Yeah.
I guess he played it off perfectly.
As far as best scene here, I have 5 nominees. I have Heist Walkaway. I have Mano y Mano, which is, it's the diner scene that everybody talks about. Then I have Bank Heist Gone Wrong. I have Killing Waingro, and then I have the final shootout between De Niro and Pacino. Condensing a near 3-hour movie into 5 scenes And I'll be frank that probably the first hour of this movie, I basically just skipped until we got to the heist walk away, which is maybe an hour and a half into the film. I'm sure I missed some things, but what other scenes need inclusion here?
I mean, I think the shootout would be number one, of course, that you've already mentioned. The end when he reaches down to get De Niro's hand, of course, that for me, and that last final shot, you see it's like this huge widescreen shot of Pacino just holding his hand and the lights in the background from the airport. That's just beautiful. Oh, I got one for you. When Val Kilmer drives up to the apartment and Ashley Judd waves him off, that's an awesome little scene right there. She didn't have to do that, and she just swipes her hand like, go, and he takes off. So that stood out for me as well.
Dad, anything to add?
No, I did not.
Okay. So then of these 6, heist walk away, mano y mano, bank heist gone wrong, killing Waingro, warning Chris, and final shootout, what is the best scene? I think we're all likely to pick the same one.
Yep. Shootout.
Oh.
No?
And no. I was going to go with the diner scene.
Oh, yeah, well, I got to get a shootout.
I think it's the heart of the film.
I think there is a little bit of a difference or a dissidence because you saw it in a theater, so that has just an extra meaning for you, whereas we've only seen it at home. And so the quiet scene where it's more dialogue heavy, it's the two of them kind of playing this dialogue chess game between the two of them has a little bit more meaning. If you're in the theater, I can definitely understand how the action of that moment and the sound and the boom and everything that's going on that has a different feel than just at your home with your basic surround sound.
For sure. I mean, it literally was like 5 minutes of just nonstop, just loud sounds of guns going off. And, when it was done in the theater, there was like a collective, everybody was like, what the hell did we just see? It was pretty intense, each time I've seen it on the big screen. So, but yeah, the coffee shop diner scene, of course, that would be right up there with it for me.
I think it's the number one thing that I see most often from people who talk about this film is that scene and the two of them kind of going through this almost cinematic dance. As far as favorite scene, I really enjoyed, and I'm not sure entirely why. I think part of it has to do with just the cool, controlled nature of which De Niro just walks into the hotel. He is able to basically empty things out, and he kills Waingro despite all of the challenges and every trap that's set up for him. He's able to walk in, walk out, and almost able to get away completely had it not been that Al comes in at the exact wrong time.
And he does what he says he would do if he's put in a situation like that, walk away. And he looks at Edie. They make his eye contact. She's looking at him like, what's going on? And then he just runs off, that was mind blowing.
I didn't include it in final questions or remaining questions, but why the hell didn't he get in the car and drive away?
Too many people around. I thought that the other day when I rewatched it. There was just too many people. He would have had to run over like 30 people. It was just, I think the crowd was just too big. I thought that too, If you look at it again, there's just too many people running around, too many fire engines, police cars. I don't know if you would have made it out, but maybe.
Easy to spot a car. Much easier to get lost in a crowd.
Yeah, I did see a small blurb where I think it was Michael Mann revealed the reason that he had De Niro dressed in those gray suits is that it would blend in easier with a crowd.
Yeah.
But okay. Other favorite scenes?
I have the same scene, but for a little bit different reason, which is he just can't let it go. Even though he talks about walking away, he can't. He has a score to settle, and it pulls him in. He just can't walk away. And that's ultimately what kills him.
Most indelible moment, though, I think, again, this goes back to, I still have the same diner scene. In hearing other people try and sell me on this movie, or in trying to convince me to watch it or share in their passion for it. This is the most talked about. It is the most clipped scene that if you're like flipping through YouTube and if you type in Heat, this is the number one thing that comes up. And so I've seen this thing, I don't know how many different times, and especially because I'm such a big fan of The Dark Knight, being a huge Batman fan myself, and the fact that in the middle of that movie, you have a very similar sequence between the Joker and Batman, which is designed to be kind of based off of this interaction, a little bit more violent, of course, but that they're kind of playing off of each other in the middle of the film. I think for me, it was always going to be that as the most indelible moment.
Yeah, I'd agree as well.
I have the bank heist. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a scene that, everything going and drawing out in the level of chase and everything involved. That to me always will stick out.
Yeah, they shot that over several weekends. So you figure have to, I think it took like 4 weekends to shoot that because they could only shoot on Saturdays and Sundays. So they had to keep coming back and setting up. So that.
I suppose that makes sense, but I was going to say they have to shut down that whole area in order to do it. So
yeah, it's only literally when you're there in real life, it's like a block and a half is what it is. It looks much bigger on screen, but.
But that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 262 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Now, before we get to our normal in memoriam here, just some quick housekeeping notes. We have some live episodes being planned coming up, and those will be on 3 consecutive Mondays. So just for some dates here, we are going to start with our, I think that's season 8 schedule planning on the 22nd of December here. So a week from Monday the 15th on the 22nd at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch us live on YouTube. I will not be putting those up on the audio channels. Part of the reason of doing these live and during my break is that I'm not going to edit them at all. So you get the raw GMOAT guys doing their spiel and in all of its glory and pauses and all of the other stuff that's going to go potentially wrong during that. But as I've teased before, we're basically going to take you through how we normally would plan our future seasons out, which is just usually me reading a very long list of films with potential anniversaries that year to my dad and letting him rank them 1 out of 5 stars. The more stars it gets, the more likely it is to end up on our final scheduling list for the year, and so on and so forth. We're also going to do a small draft with some theme months because we're going to try and bring that back for the early portion of 2027, which we'll be planning here very shortly. So, Dad, I don't know if you've got a short list of potential themes for a particular month that you can put together or have not already put together, but if you haven't, certainly start thinking about that. Then on Monday the 29th, so in between Christmas and New Year's, we will be doing, finally, our James Bond rankings. I think now finally putting a date on it, maybe Dana will actually finish the last 6 films he's been sitting on for almost 2 months.
I finished one more this week.
Okay, so we got 1 more in the bank. He's got 5 more to go, and I believe it's just the Craig films, so that should be much simpler for you. But we'll reveal to you our entire rankings from 25 through 1 of everything that we think on that franchise. As I saw that the rumor was today that Denis Villeneuve, who is supposed to be doing the next James Bond film, has supposedly, or the rumor is, that his number 1 casting choice is out there. So if you have not seen that rumor, I'm sure you can find it on your own. You do not need me to reveal or spoil that for you, but it's an interesting choice. I'm not opposed to it. I think it might be an interesting, a potentially good choice. So we'll see. But fans of the franchise can definitely tune into that. And then finally, on January 5th, so just after New Year's, We'll be bringing on my mother because she is requested to come on for another live episode. She kind of requested this last year, and I tried to put it off, but she has made a specific request to come on to talk about our holiday menu. And you'll be seeing some of that on our Instagram and our Twitter and our TikTok and all of these other places. I'll be making specific infographics that will display all of this. But essentially, what has happened over the last couple of years, my mother loves to cook. She does not like to leave the kitchen, particularly like in holiday spaces. That's like her area of calm and serenity. And so my dad's mutually is in front of a television. What is the best way to spend time with both of my parents? Well, I had gotten the TCM cookbook from years ago that paired specific meals or theme meals and cocktails to a specific movie. So we started doing that the first year where we made the meal. I would cook with my mother, and then we would go watch the film with my dad. And we've started doing ones that are not in the book. So this year we have several that are planned, and those will be coming up, but we'll be talking about those individually and what good pairings, what good cocktails we might have done, because we're going to be trying some new things. And I think some of the choices that I've made so far for what we're planning for this holiday for my family are some specific films that I either want to expose particular people in my family to, because I think they're going to like them, my dad, my mom, my sisters, whoever. But I think that'll be a fun episode to just kind of show you behind some of the creativity of the Duncans for once. Those will all be coming up again. That is December 22nd at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@GMOAT podcast. That's going to be December 29th, also at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and January 5th, again, at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can catch all of those. Those will not be on the audio feed. You will have to catch those on YouTube. If you don't catch them live, you certainly can go back and watch them on the YouTube channel after the fact, but just letting you know, those won't be on the regular feed. You'll have to specifically seek those out on YouTube. But, Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Sir Tom Stoppard, 88, Czech-born British playwright. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, and screenwriter, Shakespeare in Love, Empire of the Sun, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. 5-time Tony winner, Oscar winner in 1998. Jill Freud, 98, British actress. Torchy the Battery Boy, Love Actually. Inspiration for Lucy Pevensey. Jonathan Farwell, 93, American actor. The Young and the Restless, The Doctors, The Edge of Night. Lise Bourdain, 99, French model and actress, Love in the Afternoon, The River Girl, It Happens in Roma. Jack Shepherd, 85, English actor and playwright. English TV drama, Wycliffe. Danny Seagren, 81, American actor and puppeteer. The Electric Company, Sesame Street, and Spidey Superstories. Ethan Brown, 52, American model, actor, and musician. Raising Helen and Hackers. Michael Delano, 84, American actor. Commando, Ocean's 11.
And that would be the updated or the modern Ocean's 11, not the Frank Sinatra version. So I think there have been quite a few stories told about Sir Tom Stoppard this week. And by the way, what did he win his Oscar for, Dad? I mean, come on. It's not even that bad of a film.
Shakespeare in Love.
Yes.
It should not have beaten Saving Private Ryan.
Oh,
Okay, that's in Best Picture, but he did not beat Saving Private Ryan for, at least I don't think it was, because I think it's an adapted screenplay. But
yeah.
Are you done with your list?
Yes.
Can I include one more name?
Certainly.
My mother passed away just over a month ago.
Wow.
And she was my biggest fan and was there from the beginning when I was falling in love with film to her last breath. And, she would take him to the Academy Awards, and we would sit outside on the on the bleachers, and I'm 10, 11, 12 years old, watching these celebrities get out of their limos, arriving to the Oscars. And, she was always there pushing me. So shout out to my mom for being my biggest fan. So I just wanted to include her name in there.
And we're very sorry about that, Ralph. I'm sure
Thank
that
you.
it's been a very difficult time for you.
Right.
I understand it was rather sudden.
Yes, it was, which was more shocking. But she would want me to push on, and here I am. So, like I said, she was always pushing me and driving around Hollywood, as I had a little Super 8 camera from school, and we'd drive around, and I'd be filming movie stars' homes in the late 70s. So it's just so many great memories. But yeah, so I don't think I would be doing film if it wasn't for her. So.
And for a medium of storytelling that, while I don't think it's lost its potency, and there are certainly, as ever, a willing public ready to consume whatever is put out by the movie industry, it doesn't have the same cultural relevance. And the only way to bring it back into the heyday of what it used to be is, again, to share the passion that we all have with the greater universe. And that comes from people that are closest to us. And you sharing your story there with what happened with your mother very much seems like my dad passing some of this on to me, his dad passing it on to him. And there's the generational aspect of bringing in people that you enjoy and sharing your passions with them, whether that be sports or film or whatever. But in this particular way, I'm glad that you were able to have that with her and able to carry on her legacy with what you're doing now and being on this program with us and everything else that's going. So we will.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are good at what you do. You really are. I enjoy this, and I know everybody that watches your shows, love it as well. You guys have a really cool demeanor about yourselves, and you love movies. That shows. You have to love movies to do this. So,
well, thank you. Of course, we appreciate that, and I will say we will commemorate these all here with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Now, making an eerily awkward transition to best funniest lines, where we'll desecrate the fact that in the same breath, we basically have commemorated all of these people who added on to it and then have to quote coked up Al Pacino, but I'll do it anyway. So let's start here. We'll go round robin as we normally do. The first one I've got here is Vincent Hanna. I'm angry. I'm very angry, Ralph. You can ball my wife if she wants you to. You can lounge around here on her sofa in her ex-husband's dead tech, postmodernistic bullshit house if you want to, but you do not get to watch my fucking television set. Love
it. And I got to tell you, when I heard Al Pacino say my name on screen, I was like, yeah, he said Ralph. I love it. I love it.
Whichever of you would like to go next.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, Tom Sizemore's line, right? You want to say it? You said it earlier. You did good.
Well, for me, the action is the juice.
Love it. That line right there was just so damn cool. I mean, there's too many lines in this movie to just pick one, but that one for me was just awesome. Yeah.
Edie, you travel a lot? Neil. Yeah. Edie, traveling makes you lonely? Neil. I'm alone. I'm not lonely.
Roger Van Zant. What are you doing? Neil McCauley. What am I doing? I'm talking to an empty telephone. I don't understand. Because there's a dead man on the other end of this fucking line.
Go ahead, Dana. I'm trying to think of all these lines.
Vincent, you never wanted a regular life? Neil, what the fuck is that? Barbecues and ball games?
De Niro. Told you I was never going back.
Vincent Hanna. My life's a disaster zone. I got a stepdaughter so fucked up because her real father's this lodge type asshole. I got a wife we're passing each other on the downslope of a marriage, my third, because I spend all my time chasing guys like you around the block. That's my life. Neil, a guy once told me, don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel that heat around the corner. Now, if you're on me and you got to move when I move, how do you expect to keep a marriage?
Neil, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I know life is short. Whatever time you get is luck. You want to walk? You walk right now or on your own. And on your own, you choose to come with me. And all I know is, there's no point in me going anywhere anymore if it's going to be alone without you.
You guys are reading these, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going off memory, so I'm kind of out.
Oh, that's all right.
You know what they're looking at? They're looking at us.
Yep.
We just got made. The LAPD just got made, fellas.
Vincent Hanna, you know, we are sitting here, you and I, like a couple of regular fellas. You do what you do, and I do what I gotta do. And now that we've been face to face, if I'm there and I gotta put you away, I won't like that. But I tell you, if it's between you and some poor bastard whose wife you're gonna turn into a widow, brother, you are going down. Neil, there's a flip side to that coin. What if you do got me boxed in and I gotta put you down? Because no matter what, you will not get in my way. We've been face to face, yeah, but I will not hesitate. Not for a second.
It's great writing.
Dad, you got any others?
I'm out.
Oh, all right. So it's the Tom hour here. It's like Magnolia coming back to life here.
You have that one you've been waiting to do, so let's hear it.
I've got a couple here, but you know, Alan Marciano, why did I get it mixed up with that bitch? Because she's got a great ass, and you got your head all the way up it. Vincent Hanna, I got to hold on to my angst. I preserve it because I need it. It keeps me sharp, on the edge, where I got to be. Chris Shahirless, for me, the sun rises and sets with her, man. And Vincent Hanna, my last one here. It's like you said, all I am is what I'm going after.
Fantastic.
All right. So, moving.
You're pretty good at that. You know, you should do some acting or something.
I did it in a younger life, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you're pretty good with the hand moves and all that stuff and the cadence of the lines. You're right on.
Well, I know you appreciated my Tom Cruise going back to Magnolia. That's one that will live in infamy. Yeah, that's a fun moment. Anyway, let's move to the Stanley Rubric here. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out, so roughly the year 2000 to today. What is the legacy of the film as shared between the industry and the audience? Two equal yet separate groups, 5 and 5 points apiece between them for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second here?
I'll go second.
Again, going back to the early portion of this, I think this was a film that initially when it came out, I think the critics were higher on it, and we'll get that in the next category. But since then, this is a film almost entirely made by the passion of the fan base for it and keeping it alive as a potentially all-time classic. And so because of that, while I don't think that the industry doesn't have a reverence for it, as we said, Christopher Nolan is obviously the most notable name that has said it was influential on him for another seminal movie. Both of these movies have now made, well, The Dark Knight as well as Heat have both been named on the Cinema Legacy poll list. I would say that it's probably a 3.5 from the industry because, again, the appreciation for some of the larger lists and some of the other stuff that's gone with it is not quite as there. But I think from a fan base standpoint, I could be talked up to a 4.5, but currently I have this sitting at a 4, so I have a 7.5 out of 10.
I'm going to go with a 5 on the fan base. I'm going to go with industry. I'm going to go like a 4.9 because
I'm just going to round that to a 10. So
prequel / sequel coming out, right? And there's some big names that want to be involved with this. I think, you know, I remember when this first opened, to be honest with you, everybody went to the theater to see it because they wanted to see Pacino and De Niro on screen. But I also remember it didn't make a lot. I think opening weekend I was a little disappointed because I would always look at the trades, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter. What was number one this weekend? I don't think it was number one that weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I was kind of bummed about that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was number 2.
So I just thought it would have been this huge, number one for like 4 weeks, and it wasn't. So, but I think the fan base is just huge, and there's a lot of anticipation for what's coming next. I have this wonderful book, and I won't get into what's in it because it's incredible. But there's a lot to cover in what's coming.
So another 3 hours with Neil McCauley. Okay. I can deal with it. So we have a 7.5 and a 10 on the board, Dad. What say you?
I have a 4 for the industry. I think that it helped, even though it was critically acclaimed. It made money, but not a ton of money. It was 58th, I think, for box office for the
27th for the worldwide box office that year.
Okay. So I think it did help the careers of some of them by being in this film. We've already gone through some of them that were trying to build up their careers. So I'm at a 4 for that. For the public, this is where I don't know how to quite get it. Cinephiles, no problem. They all know it. They all love it, etc. The problem is the masses. Our infamous office poll. 3 people.
Was it that 30? High? I kind of missed it because I had somebody trying to talk to me when the poll was going on, but
it was 3.
That's incredible. It doesn't seem real.
And admittedly, I have kind of this hole in my cinema knowledge from about 1990 to about 1998 because I had small children and I never got to the theater.
So I probably closer to like 2005, but okay.
Well, that was about the time when it was a little earlier than that when we would be out for dinner and Sarah would call from the bathroom because Tom is trying to kill me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Move on.
Anyway. But I knew there was this film out there that Pacino and De Niro had this scene in, but I couldn't tell you which movie it was, and I didn't know much about it. So I can't go. I listened to your arguments and such. I was at a 2.5. I'll go up to a 3. And so I'm at a 7 overall.
So that would be a 8.17 between the 3 of us. Let's move to impact and significance. This is taking that initial 5 years that we just discounted from 1995 to 2000 roughly. What is the impact and significance among the same 2 groups, the audience and the industry, for a total of 5 and 5 points apiece between the 2 of them, for a total of 10. Since I went first last time, Dad, would you like to start here?
Sure. Again, this did not get nominated for anything. It was critically acclaimed and well-liked by critics. And for whatever reason, it never resonated. And I don't get exactly why, but it did influence a lot of foreign directors, and it did influence Christopher Nolan, and I think there were others that were influenced within that period of time. So I'm going to give it a 4 for the industry. For the public, I originally, because we're talking about the box office, what I did do is I started looking up domestic rentals because it was actually a VHS box set. You had to rent both or 2 VHS
cassettes.
Yeah, in order to get it. And it actually did fairly well. So I think it was bigger within that 5 years than its original release. So I'm going with a 3.5 for that reason. And so I'm at a 7.5.
I could try and add stuff to it, but I came to the same score. So for the sake of time and efficiency, I'm just going to say 7.5.
I'm about a 4 really quick. I think it reminds me of Scarface, where Scarface didn't do well at the box office, but over time it did well with video rentals and kind of grew an audience after the theatrical release. And now it's this, legendary hit for Pacino. But I'm curious to find out what opened that same weekend. I wish I knew, because I wonder what was going head to head against it. Maybe there was something big out there at the time.
Finishing in third place at the time behind Jumanji and Toy Story.
Well, there you go. Yeah. I mean, different movies, different genres and audience, but even adults are going to see Toy Story. I went to see Toy Story,
Yeah.
so.
Well, we covered Toy Story, the first 3 Toy Stories all this year. I don't think we're going to be covering Jumanji anytime soon. Any of them. But, I mean, those are more kid-friendly. All right, so that is a 7.67 impact and significance score average between the 3 of us. Let's move to novelty. This is a divided category as of this season between the originality of anything having to do with the movie and the execution on the movie. Now, since Dad and I are not in the industry, I think we're going to kick it over to Ralph, who is uniquely placed to be able to comment on the originality of anything having to do with the movie, particularly in some of the technical sides of things, as well as the execution on anything in the movie compared to ourselves. So we'll let you set the baseline standard here first.
I think we touched on it a little bit, but I think shooting everything on location, real locations, was awesome, as well as the music, the soundtrack. There's some notable artists on there. U2, Moby has that incredible keyboard instrumental at the end when he's holding De Niro's hand. That soundtrack for me was ahead of its time. It was a little techno sounding and really put the movie, in a different level for me when I saw it. Once again, I saw it in the theater, so everything's just blaring in my ears. The visuals, cinematography, really cold blue look of LA that is constant throughout the film. What else? I think I could sit here for an hour just going on and on. What else? What kind of answer are you looking for with that question?
A score. So 5 points for originality, 5 points for execution, for a total of 10.
5 for execution, originality 4.
Okay. So we have a 9 on the board, Dad. I will say, in some of the technical aspects, and maybe I judge this, we've usually put the technical and some of the marvels with it in the same category as some of the subject material and such. I think you could give some credibility behind the subject material in that, again, we're humanizing the cops and robbers type story. This isn't your average heist film. It's not your average the good guy versus the bad guy, because it does somewhat play out like a Western. So it's got some motifs that we're kind of familiar with, but are still somewhat distinct and unique to themselves. So I don't want to knock too much off of that. And then, as Ralph said, some of the technical things in here, I'd go with a 3.5 on that side of it, or for the originality. As far as an execution, this is maybe where I'm a little bit more stuck. I think at the top of this movie, I think De Niro's possibly one of his best performances. Like, I don't want to put it on Taxi Driver or Raging Bull, which is next week's level, where he's like in a clear category to himself. But this is in that next list of like De Niro acting at a high level type films. I'd probably put it in there with his kind of like Goodfellas era, and you could put in a few other things that might be in there. I think it's a little bit before, like, he totally changes tones with Meet the Parents and such, and he goes into more comedic roles and side and supporting roles. But this is like one of the last great times where he's a leading man, and I think that might carry it a little bit. There's a little bit with the Pacino where I might knock it a tad bit for some overacting, but otherwise, like, I guess my biggest issue with this is it might be a little too long. There are some parts of this that do drag a bit for me. And I know that's not the case for everybody. I think sitting in and viewing it in the theater would be different, where you don't have the distractions of your phone constantly. But there are just some scenes in here, watching it at home with your phone next to you, and you're like, oh, well, let me just pick up. Oh, I missed like 3 things going on in the sports game or whatever, you know? And so,
and you broke it into 2 parts. You saw half of it, and you said
Yeah.
you saw another. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
That's like watching-
honestly, I break up a lot of my films that way and watch it almost episodic, like TV, that way, because I can only fit in a half an hour here and 20 minutes here and whatever else. I can't sit for 2 hours straight to watch a movie really much anymore. I just don't have that kind of time. So fine, but I'm going to go with a 4 on execution. I have a 7.5.
Okay. I'll be succinct. Originality. It's not the most original concept, but what's original about it is the 2 facets I started to talk about when we opened the show, which is the development of the characters, the building of the underlay, the personal lives of, and how these characters are professionals in their jobs, but how they have a bigger influence on them than ultimately the relationships, but it does show and develop those relationships and the people around them. So I give it higher points for that. The second point, the scene with Ashley Judd telling Val Kilmer, just kind of casually just waving him off. I mean, she's so angry with him and so upset with him, and she has no problem in getting him to show up, basically playing him into a trap. But at the last minute, she can't do it. Again, that's a study of the relationships that exist between women, and I'm saying this because most criminal activity is perpetrated by men. You know, the relationships there. So I thought that was real strong, very original, and the methodology of no sound stages, filming it on the streets and doing everything that way was also very original. So I'm going to go with a 4.5. From an execution standpoint, I thought it was beautifully shot. I love the direction. I agree with you, Tom, that a little bit of a scissors on the cutting room table would have been nice in occasional places. So I can't give it anything higher than a 4.5 on execution. So I'm at a 9.
I thought it was too short of a movie. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but in the theater, it just goes by like that. You don't realize you're sitting there for that long. So, yeah. And they did cut a lot of scenes. So can you imagine if they left them in? Whew.
Yeah. So that's an 8.5 average between the 3 of us. Let's move to classicness. This is a measure of how well the film has aged, or was it ahead of its time? Has it poorly aged? Basically anything having to do with that. And so it requires a lot of nuance. So we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana, who happens to be pouring himself a drink and didn't anticipate
Cheers.
that I'd be cutting to him immediately.
Oh, well, true. All right, start at 6. 1 point up for the messed up,
Start at 6. Why?
because that's a good center point, because we have to take into account how it ages and such, and whether points up or points down matter and how this works.
So you are very poorly explaining this. We started a
Thank
6
you.
instead of a 5 because it's easier to take points off for aging poorly, given how films have aged over time, than it is to add points up. So we give it a default scoring basically to aid it to keep it a little bit higher. There.
All right. So starting at the 6, I give the whole development of the cop crook personal angle 1 point up. I think it clearly evidences what was likely to be happening in society with, especially with some of the police violence and brutality, because even that was exemplified somewhat by Pacino. He was a little rough at times and probably beyond what he should have been doing. But I think that kind of, so I'm giving it a point up for that. The female criminal relationship, I think, is insightful and adds an element that's missing from many of these crime dramas. So I give that a half point up. The second one is the reality of the violence, which is that even though or so many of the primary characters end up dead, in large part by their own choosing, by how they behaved, mistakes they made, etc. I think it does bring a sense of reality to it. It's not glorified violence as much as it is pointing out that violence does actually have significant consequences. So I gave it a half point. So I'm at an 8.
Okay. I have no reason to move anything down on this, and I would argue that it should at least have a point for timelessness, given its 30-year age. And we usually start that category about the year 25. And then, again, going back to my point from earlier, that I think that one of the reasons that this exceeds its genre for some people is that the relationship, maybe not between De Niro and Pacino explicitly, between this cop and robber type thing, but rather with them and their identity being their job, is much more universal thematic. You could see it being two rival CEOs, or you could see it being, any sort of other things. So from that, I'll give it an additional point up. I also have an 8.
I mean, they were both the best at what they did, until the end for Neil. But I think it holds up really well 30 years later. If anything, it holds up better than before. I think the fan base is huge. Dana touched on something, and he's mentioned it a couple of times, the thing about women, in these men's lives. I think that's an important thing to touch on again. There's a scene where they're all having dinner at a restaurant, and they're all drinking, having dinner, and the wives are there and everything. The wives know what these guys do for a living, but it's something that is not talked about or mentioned. But I think that whole relationship between them and their wives or / girlfriends is something I never really thought of until Dana brought it up tonight. So good stuff there for sure. Yeah, I think it holds up really well, even today.
Do you have a number?
I'll go with 8.
All right, so that's an 8 average between the three of us. Very easy math. Finally, here we have rewatchability. Insert your own subjective test out of 10 as to how rewatchable the film is. We usually start with our guest on this, and since he is so passionate about the film, I'm sure he'll have no problem giving us a 10 out of 10.
Yes, so just like Jaws, I'm going to go 10 out of 10 because anytime I'm channel surfing and this is on TV, I will stop and watch it. Depends what else is on, Dodger game or something. I might come back and forth, but I will watch it when it's on. That's how much I really enjoy the film. So I know you two probably think different, but I will watch it anytime it's on. So
for me, yes, I will rewatch this film. I will encourage other people to watch the film. I will recommend the film. I'm just not certain how often I'll rewatch it, simply because I think the key part of this is to look at it or watch it more with some level of freshness. So it's going to be 3-4 years in between watches for me. So I'll go with a 5.5, which is about just under, the normal cycle, I would normally say, which is usually a 6.
Let me add on to something he said really quick that Dana said. You'll recommend it. If you have not seen Heat and you're a fan of films, do yourself a favor and watch the movie. That's all I have to say. I mean, if you love movies like we all do, give it a shot and watch it on the big screen. If you ever get a chance, if they ever release it for some kind of anniversary, something or other, try to catch it on the big screen.
So I have been taking the tact of trying to be more objective, going back to kind of the original definition of this category, as opposed to a very subjective scoring on rewatchability that we've been doing over the past several seasons. And so I'm trying to take more of the broad audience approach of how rewatchable this film is, as opposed to just me, myself. Because I think, again, I think between the conversation this evening and this most recent rewatch, and Dad actually enjoying the film, I've come to appreciate and enjoy it more, but it's still not like an instant remote dropper quite yet for me. But the passion of the contingency of fans that it would be, I think would have this rated very highly. The problem is I think some of the notoriety, I think some of the length would also be difficult, and somewhat of the subject material, some of the violence might turn a few people off. It's a very male-centric movie, kind of by design, but I think that might also hinder it a little bit. So I have it at a 6.5 here. And so that's going to give us a 7.33 average between the three of us. For audience score on this one, we had an 86% for Google users and a 94% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us a 9.0. So to repeat the categories, we had an 8.17 for legacy. We had a 7.67 for impact and significance. We had an 8.5 for novelty, an 8 for classicness, a 7.33 for rewatchability, and a 9 for audience score, giving us a final total of 48.67, and currently placing it on our list between Monty Python's The Life of Brian and Whiplash at number 93.
Nice.
I actually think Whiplash and Heat being somewhat near each other makes a lot of sense. They have some of the same kind of adversarial male relationship between them, but people operating at a high level, trying to get the most out of each other, I guess. So there is some symmetry to that.
Interesting point.
So as usual, if you have anything to say, commentary, good, bad, or otherwise, you can certainly reach out to us on any of our socials at GMOAT Podcast. You can find us at our email, greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on our website, ronnieduncanstudios.com/GMOAT Podcast. Let's quickly turn to some remaining questions. I had already asked, why didn't Neil get in the car and take off? But we'll go to the second one here. Why did Lauren go to Vincent's hotel room, and how did she get in? This has been the weirdest question for me. When we get to the end of the movie, it comes out of like the middle of nowhere. Like, I get thematically, and obviously the stakes are raised when Natalie Portman's floating in the bathtub, but why would she go there? How did she know that that would be his room? And how did she get in to do such a dramatic act instead of doing it at home?
There's probably some backstory to, that they didn't show, obviously, that's in the script of how she knew where he was staying. And, that's probably stuff that was on the cutting room floor. I think Natalie Portman's character, there wasn't a lot said about her, as to why she was sort of messed up. But yeah, I thought that too, rewatching it. How did she know? In fact, my wife asked me, how did she know he was staying there? Or how did she get his key? So he might have given it to her before. He picked her up at a bus stop earlier when he was with a partner of his. She was, I think, ditching school or something, and he picked her up and she got in the car. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she had the key somehow, some way.
Well, she's only seen for like 3 scenes in the movie when she's getting basically that pickup where I think she
Mhm.
was waiting for her dad and he doesn't show. There's the early scene where she's talking about barrettes with her mom and she's very frantic. And then obviously the stakes being raised with her cutting her wrists and almost dying at the end of the film. Do you know if there's a novelization of the film anywhere?
No, no, I don't. But I'm sure I can find the script in a heartbeat and dive into that a little more.
Yeah, I think there's got to be
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah, like I
that's-
said, there has to be some backstory to that she felt to do it there at Vince's hotel room. It was symbolic some way, somehow. She obviously felt like it was necessary to do it there. Like she wanted to kill herself, but maybe she knew if she did it there, there would be some slight chance it wouldn't work, and she would be found, or vice versa. Maybe that's a place she could do it and not be found. I don't know.
That is the relationship that Vincent has of any in the film that has the most benefit to him personally. His relationship with his wife is strained, and it's because she's got a messed up life and he is the protector. He is law and order. And so he can, through her, perform much of the same duty as he is as a police officer. So his relationship with her is stronger. And I think she is looking at him as being a protector. The adage is that most suicides have no intention of actually dying. It's a cry for help.
Mhm.
So of course, where would she go? She would go to the one person who seems to actually have some concern about her well-being.
And if I were to guess, and it's never said, but it's quite possible that she sees him leave with the television set and knows he's going somewhere else. I mean, we don't see him actually check into a hotel, but that it's possible that is not the first time he's going into that particular room, because it just feels random, like he's walking into it for the first time and she's there for some reason. And so it doesn't really explain it. It's kind of an awkward thing, but you can't take it out because you have to have that scene at the hospital between him and his soon-to-be ex-wife. But to me, if I were to make a guess, she goes into that room specifically knowing that he's already going to be there because he's been there before, because she's trying to do a Hail Mary act that saves their marriage so that he'll stick around, because she knows she can't leave the mom, but she also knows she can't continue to have this relationship with Vincent if he's not in the relationship with the mom.
Right. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of backstory there of why she even wants to do this to herself. The short scenes we do see her in, for me, it's just not enough for her to want to do that to herself. So there's obviously a lot going on there, maybe with her real dad, stuff like that. Abandonment issues or whatever it may be.
Certainly.
My question was, what happens to Val Kilmer?
Yep.
What happens
that was
to him?
the next question I was going to go to. Is he obviously can walk away?
There you go.
Yeah.
You want to know what happens? There you
Okay.
go. You'll have to wait.
Oh, I'm okay with that. Well, for that matter, though, I mean, we know what happens to Val Kilmer, unfortunately, in real life.
Right.
So.
Right.
But
well, my remaining question is how ironic that we're doing a film called Heat on a day when we're supposed to have 5 below temperature and tomorrow's high is 10.
Yeah, well, that is doing a December movie in Wisconsin. I guess my only hope is that usually when we have like a really bitter, cold, and snowy December, the rest of the winter's not quite so bad, traditionally.
I don't know. Somewhere there's some El Nino or some El Chapo or something that the weathermen will be telling us about. And, and it makes no sense. They could just be making it up for all I know.
I got to share an anecdote
good
with you later about that. So, okay. But that's all my remaining questions. Did anybody have any further? Okay. So that being the case and hearing none, Ralph, you won't be back with us again until next November. You are obviously welcome back anytime, but you will be back with us for a very special episode of the poster behind you for anybody who's watching the video. And that would be our lead-in episode for JFK, celebrating at the time its 35th anniversary. But that's going to be part of a special 2-part GMOAT episode. That will be the first part, and then we'll have a lead-in for hopefully what Dana's been planning for like 3 years, but hasn't actually like outlined or started to work on. So maybe again, like the James Bond rankings episode, once you set a deadline, a firm deadline, maybe he'll start to actually like feel some pressure and work with that. As I've been told many years, lawyers work on deadlines. And if you don't set them, I guess maybe they don't work to them because it's not as urgent. So, but next November, we got you back again for that. But until then, please go ahead again and remind everybody what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I am on IMDb if you want to see what's in development. Got some cool projects going on. Different genres, a couple of dramas. I got a horror film, so some fun things. Pretty excited about that. So hopefully by the next time we do get together, I'll have I've done a couple of cool feature films that I can share about. So
that would be great. We'd love to hear it.
You guys keep doing what you do because you guys are awesome. Like I said earlier, I enjoy when I open Instagram and I see new videos pop up, or I love all that. So it just keep doing what you do. You guys are good.
Thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to the JFK episode, Dana. I know you are too. So
yes,
that may be one where I let him just like go wild with it. Maybe he needs to host that week because it's certainly not going to be my podcast. But yeah. All right. So again, some small housekeeping, just a reminder, circling back to what we did before, the 3 live episodes that we have coming up on December 22nd, 29th, and January 5th, all at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to watch it live, you obviously can watch it after the fact on our YouTube channel. That's going to be youtube.com/@GMOAT podcast. But as we also announced last week, we're still looking for input from any of our loyal fan base out there if you would like us to start a merch store. So we have gotten a little bit of feedback so far from last week's episode, but we would really like to hear from you if you would be looking to purchase anything from the GMOAT store. Coffee cups. I did hear about a beefcake calendar spread type thing. I'm not sure who would be featured in that because it definitely wouldn't be us if it's beefcake. But yeah.
Well, there are times that I do believe I look like a side of beef, but
I was going to say I'm much more pound cake than beefcake, but okay.
Hey guys, I haven't had dinner yet. Stop talking about food. I think if you guys did some cool T-shirts and hoodies and caps, I think you guys would definitely move some of those. So
we've been giving out the hats for 5-timers, then T-shirts for 10-timers, polos for 15.
Yeah,
and then we're thinking, oh, people see us with these things, so maybe they would want one. We're also looking at coffee cups and cocktail glasses since, I figure eventually if I had some cocktail glasses holding that up instead of the Jim Beam glass I have here might be a little bit of a sales point.
Sure. But otherwise, any other remaining thoughts for the week, Dad?
We did watch a film this week.
We watched a film. Wow.
Yes. That is getting some buzz.
Okay.
Joel Edgerton's
Train Dreams.
film.
Yeah.
Train Dreams. I do not know what you thought of it.
Oh, okay. I guess we haven't talked about it.
Nope. I loved it. I thought it was one of the better films I've seen this year.
It may be for me what you've referred to as a 3-day film, because I think my appreciation has grown after the fact. When we initially it ended, I'm like, okay, that was a well-made film. Like, I have no complaints. The cinematography is a little bit different and a little bit jarring to be in that kind of square box initially, and the way it's kind of filmed almost documentary style, and it feels, I think somebody in our Discord had made the comment that it feels much like Tree of Life in kind of its essence. It's much more slice of life kind of in that sense. But I think it's grown on me a little bit more after the fact. That being said, while watching it, I will admit that there were good sections of the movie I was quite bored.
Well, what to me, what it says is that we're all the stars of our own movie. We all live very full lives. You do not have to be anything special to have had an exemplary life. Because for those around us, our friends, our family, people that know us, people that we work with, some of them will honestly say that when you pass, that you've had this really great life, even though you may not have any claim to fame or anything at all about it.
And in most cases, they're really lying. But, in my case, when I pass away, I can't imagine that anybody has anything extraordinary to say about how I lived or died.
Well,
cool.
You don't know that. And
yeah, that's true. My life is not completely over yet, but
it reminded me of Stewart's realization in It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Is that you are in essence, you're the experiences you've had and the impact you've had on others.
Wow.
I wonder to a degree if age and perspective have a different take on that for you than it does for me, where I'm still somewhat straddling. Like I don't feel young per se, but I definitely don't feel old. Like there are moments where you feel like, oh shit, I've been out of high school that long, but I'm 35. I'm not that old yet either.
You're exactly right. And that's something I never understood about film critics that maybe bash a film, and then you have a critic that thinks it's the best film he's ever seen. We come to see a movie or go into a theater or watch it at home. We bring our own past experiences with us when we watch that. So some of my movies that I have in my top 10 list, you've probably never even heard of. Or you might have heard because you're a film buff, but you might not have seen because, I was born in mid 60s. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of current films that I probably haven't even seen. So I think age and experience definitely play into if somebody likes a film or not. I was going to ask you guys, do you watch many documentaries or not really?
Not a ton. There are some that I will go out and do, but it's not something that I go out of my way to do. I think Dad would be more attuned to doing the documentaries than I would. He tends to be or gravitate a lot more towards nonfiction than I do. I like a lot more fiction in my storytelling. So I think that's part of the reason, but yeah.
I love Ben Stiller's documentary he did on his parents.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I have to. I saw one last night on Netflix called The Lost Children about that plane that went down in the Amazon in 2023. And there was 4 children that survived in the Amazon for 40 days. Wow. And one was an 11-month-old baby. So yeah, it's on Netflix. It's amazing. Saw it last night.
But otherwise, I know there are several other big movies that are coming out. I'm going to try my best to get to both Hamnet and Sentimental Value over the weekend if I can. This is finals for me during law school, so it's mostly studying, and then I allow myself some breaks and some moments of levity to kind of break up the monotony of studying and whatnot. But it will all be over soon, and then I can have my 4 weeks of peace for special projects.
Then start it all over again.
Yeah.
Schadenfreude.
I'm getting more used to the cycle. That's what I will say. It doesn't bother me nearly as much as it did last year and whatever else. But it's, you try and do what you can. And I know Jake Kelly is supposed to be coming out this weekend. It will have already come out by the time this episode airs. But by the time this episode airs as well, the following Friday, I'm very much looking forward to the next Knives Out movie. But other than that, that looks like a good spot to stop for this week. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next week. If you win, you win. If you lose, you still win. There's no way you can lose. Next week for our 292nd episode, we welcome back Jen and Sarah of Movies and Us to discuss Raging Bull from 1980, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader and Mardik Martin, cinematography by Michael Chapman, music by Jim Henriksen, Editing by Thelma Schoonmaker. Starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Frank Vincent. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or TikTok at the handle @GMOAT. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.